Well, hi, my name is Anthony Inoy. I work with Winnebago. I manage the compact coach product up in the Pacific Northwest, and today we're going to talk about the Winnebago Revel. Now, this is a coach that's been getting a lot of attention and something that Winnebago is very proud of because it really has less to do with us and our engineering team and more to do with the voice of the customer, the end customer. We've been doing a lot of R&D and going to events like the Outdoor Retailer Show in Utah or going to the Sea Otter Classic down in California. And what we found is that there's this whole different group of people that are interested in the outdoor lifestyle but aren't interested in your traditional RV, meaning they don't want to have the traditional shower and the bathroom and all of those things. Rather, what they want to do is they want to get off the beaten path and they want to enjoy this beautiful country that is our backyard. And so this is the tool to get that person out there. And so I'll start with a little bit of the platform. We built it on the Mercedes 4x4 chassis. This is the Sprinter chassis. There's really not another alternative, not a lot of competitors that build a 4x4 right now. And there's a couple things that we take into mind when building this. First of all, Mercedes is a great partner. As you can imagine, what stands behind that emblem is just a great manufacturer and someone who takes a lot of pride in their product and cares about their customers. And that's what we needed as Winnebago. So we have this 4x4 chassis. They wanted to build it on a shorter chassis. We have a 170-inch wheelbase that's available in some of our other products, but with this, we wanted to have the clearance. And so you have 11 inches of ground clearance from the very center of this coach here. And then being the shorter wheelbase, that just allows you a little more flexibility. You're not going to go rock climbing, but this will get you off the beaten path. Now on this Mercedes Sprinter chassis, it's a V6 3.0. It has 188 horsepower and 325 foot-pounds of torque. So it's really powerful enough to get you where you need to go. It is a diesel platform, and so we are using a DEF fluid. Now the DEF just goes right here. You have a 3¼ gallon tank of DEF fluid. A lot of people get intimidated by that, but in the United States, since 2010, you really have had to use, it's been an EPA regulation, the DEF fluid. But that is one of the things that allows us to get a little more horsepower out of this engine, get a little more performance out of it. So each gallon of DEF, it's sort of like your fuel economy, right? It just depends on how you're driving it. It depends on how you're using it. But you can sort of say that you'll get around 1,000 miles per gallon of DEF. Your chassis battery is not actually going to be under the hood here, but there is a little extra space for those customers that want to put an extra chassis battery, want to put an extra AGM battery. But if you need to jump it, you have your negative cable right here and your positive cable right here. This is also a really intelligent chassis. So what I mean by that is it has things, for example, like crosswind assist. Now I'll give you a little example. I was driving along the Columbia River Gorge and we had winds at a steady 25 miles per hour, but we had gusts at about 50. Now what this does, it has a computer system, a brain that will work with the power steering, and it'll also work with each independent ABS brake. So it has a yaw sensor. It'll detect when the vehicle starts to move a little bit off center, when it's taking a big gust, and what it'll do is it'll apply the ABS brake to each independent wheel. It allows it to function and control the movement of the chassis. Basically keeps you from losing control, skidding out, things like that. So when I was driving on the Columbia River Gorge, for example, I got a 50-mile-an-hour gust, and I could hear just this one wheel right here chirp and kind of straighten me out, and that was pretty neat. I saw a lot of semis, a lot of trucks around me that were really kind of being blown around, and I didn't have that problem. It's also got load adaptive ESP, which basically works on the same premise. It works with the power steering and also works with the analog brakes to make sure that you don't skid out. These tires here, I talked a lot about the voice of the customer and how important that is to us. The people that are using this, it's not your traditional RVer again. A lot of times called overlanders, people that want to drive long distances and get to out-of-the-way locations. So you need two things. You need a tire with good grip. So this is our optional tire. It's the BF Goodwrench all-terrain tire. And one of the good things about it is it has good grip, but when you're on the freeway driving for long distances, it's not going to give you that hum that sometimes those more knobby tires will have. It's a good performance tire. This is our optional wheel, so it's a 17-inch wheel. And then on your standard wheel, you're just going to get the Mercedes Sprinter wheel and tire. It's just a 16-inch wheel. You're going to see that we have our standard Winnebago running board, which really is aesthetically pretty cool as well. So at nighttime, at twilight, it has a little light ground effects under here that looks just really pretty cool. There's a little light here on the awning. Now we try to make this coach as carefree as possible and as simple as possible. So we have a little seismic sensor just right on the end of the awning here, and you can see when I give it just a little tug, it'll automatically go in. So if we were to catch a gust of wind, then you'd see the awning start to go in like that. Now with the push of a button, I could stop it and have it go out again. So again, the purpose of this coach is to have an outdoor experience. So when I come out here, we tried to make use of every available square inch on here. So this leg just tucks behind the dinette, and you have a little bit of ability to manage how level it is by twisting the end here of the leg. And then all you do is just pop up each latch here, and you can say you have a wonderful little table to cook, hang out with your friends. You also have a little table here that you can put down, and you can put all your condiments. If you're cooking, having a little grill out here, you can sit beneath the shade and just really have a nice time cooking with your friends and kind of hanging out. In addition to that, you have all your ports here. So right here you have your gravity fill. So if you are off the beaten path and you want to get some river water, as long as you clean it, then you can just kind of pour it right in here. You have a 24-gallon tank capacity. And then if you're at a city fill, you can fill the same tank right here. Then you have a spray nozzle. There's actually another spray nozzle on the back. This one's just for cold water. And then you have your regular drainages here. When we look underneath the coach, this is one of the neatest things about the coach right here, is the fresh water system. This is a hydronic line. So what that does is it's providing a heated fluid to heat the water supply. With your van, you're really hesitant to say it's all seasons because it is a van. There's not going to be a lot of R factor, a lot of insulation, but we like to call this a multi-season coach. Part of that has to do with the water supply. Rather than have your traditional heated tank system, which RVs use, which use electric pad, and it has a couple of problems. One, when it gets hot, that electric pad, the glue tends to come off, and sometimes they fail, they peel down. Another problem is that it just draws a lot of electricity. Now, we wanted to have a coach that had our limited fuel system, so we don't use propane, we just use diesel and electricity. And to do that, we had to have something that was a little more conservative with the energy. So this uses a diesel burner to heat the hydronic fluid and then passes that fluid through the fresh water tank here. So even in cold weather, it's not gonna freeze. So we've had people take this in pretty cold conditions. We do two things. One, we have an outer tank, and it's a rotocast seamless tank. And then we provide 1 inch of insulation all the way through the tank. And then we put another rotocast tank on top of that and inside of that. So it's insulated, and then in addition, we have between those two tanks that hydronic line running, which heats the water supply. Again, you can take it into pretty cold weather. Another nice thing about this is when you look at things like our windows, typically on an RV, you're gonna have a glass window. A glass window has an R value of about 0.9. This has an R value of a 2.5. So this is an acrylic window, dual pane acrylic window. And you'll notice that it has a really nice sound quality. So if you're parked next to the freeway and you had a glass window and you had this, you'd really notice the difference. In addition, the insulation within this coach isn't your standard RV insulation. Typically, an RV will use block foam insulation, which doesn't breathe, and so moisture can accumulate inside of the coach. Then some of your custom builds will use house insulation, which, as you can imagine, will shake down if you're in a 4x4 situation. So what we use here is we just bit the bullet and we put some automotive style insulation, same thing you have in your Subaru or any other automobile. And it both breathes and allows for moisture to pass through and provides a lot greater sound deadening quality. So as I mentioned, I manage the B vans in the Pacific Northwest, so I use it in a lot of cold weather. And this has the best heat retention out of any van that I've been in. I put 2,000 miles in the dead of winter on this coach, and I found that it was a really warm, really comfortable coach. Once I got a little bit of heat in there, it stayed warm and it stayed comfortable. So I was really pleasantly surprised with that. We come back here and I have a portable solar plug-in. So the solar charger on this coach will actually manage up to 500 watts of solar. So you can take a little portable suitcase solar panel, 140 watts or whatever, and plug it in there. You have a 110 watt plug-in right here. This does have a 2,000 watt inverter, and it's a pure sine wave inverter. So for your people who are more computer inclined, which I'm not, the pure sine wave inverter works better with your laptops and things like that. So they're pretty happy. We do have a lot of folks in, the Tesla folks down in California that know a lot more about that than I do, and they seem to love it. So this right here is something that Winnebago does. We actually tooled this flare out here. This is what allows us to have this coach. It's a small detail, but what you want is a 143-inch wheelbase and the ability to sleep in it. And believe it or not, that's harder than you would think to get. This is what makes this coach. Now, this is not an RV. It's a 4x4 gear hauler. And so what we have here is a ton of storage. And then as you can see, this mechanism works really well. We bring in this mechanism from Italy. Now in Europe, they build a lot more compact coaches than we do in North America. And so if we find someone that builds a really good mechanism like this, we're more than happy to use it. The best thing about this right here is that it's 79 inches from one end to the other. So that's 6'7". So I'm 5'10", and you can see I have more than enough space. So we do have quite a number of customers that are 6'3" and find they have more than enough space. 6'6", you're a little tight. And then there's a couple other features that you can use this for here. Some of our customers want to store their bikes under here. So what they ask is, can I sleep on it when it's raised up a little bit? And the answer is yes. This mechanism will hold 500 pounds at any height. The challenge obviously is that you have a little bit of a space here on the end. But what you can do is you can very simply go to a Hobby Lobby location like that, get yourself a foam pad and then just reupholster it. That'll allow you to sleep at a higher height. We have people that in the past were customizing their own coaches, and so you have people with very specific wants and needs that are using this Revel. And what we tell them is that we've just given you the best possible platform, and then you can build on from there. Little things like that, we don't necessarily customize or do anything different, but we welcome you to. And you can see on the roof here, we have just rope lighting. We actually tool these little pieces here, so it hides a lot of the screws in the ceiling and just gives you a little bit better aesthetic. Another one of the differences between Winnebago and a custom build is that we're going to give you better quality materials. You look at the walls here, and this is all ABS molded plastic. So again, automotive quality in an RV. Traditionally, some of your competitors or some of your customizers are going to use just a wood or a panel or a board, and they're going to wrap that with a fabric. It does a couple of things. One, it adds more weight, and you want to save as much weight as you can on this chassis. But it also just doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing. Also, things like moisture, when you're taking it into a rugged environment, it's not going to stand up quite as well as this is. Now, if you have customers that want to modify this, these panels can be removed completely. So if you want to get all the way to the shell, feel free. What makes this coach so great is the voice of the customer. So as we continue to build this coach into the future, we will add on recommendations from our customers. You'll see that you have another couple of outlets. So again, this is on an inverter. You have a couple of tie downs here that really easily just remove. And then a little window here. You see that it has a little screen and a day or a night shade for sleeping. Same acrylic dual pane window. So a lot of our customers don't want the AC on this. The AC is an option. If you wanted to remove the AC, it just comes with a max air fan, and with your sleeping with your head on this side, it just draws a nice draft right through there. So I mentioned how we have another spout here. This is hot and cold water. So if you're in colder weather and you're out mountain biking, you can really easily just turn on some warm water and just rinse off your feet. You know, we're getting off the beaten path, but we want you to be comfortable and we want you to be having a good time. When we look back here, we have a 5,000 pound hitch. And this is probably one of the neatest things about what we built here. You can see it's not screwed in. Somebody was looking at it just a second ago. But this little ladder system here gives you a lot of flexibility. So it holds up to 225 pounds. I can easily just take it off, remove it, and then I can move anywhere up and down the side of the coach here. That gives me the ability to use this luggage rack that's up top here. So this holds 225 pounds. And as you can see, I can climb right up here. If I wanted to clean my solar panels off so that I'm getting better output from my solar panels, I can do that. Each one of these cross members can easily be unscrewed and adjusted back or forward. Now, as you can see, I have an AC up here, so I can't necessarily get another solar panel up here. But if I were to remove that AC, I could easily get another solar panel. We have 2 ports that are occupied, but again, my charger will manage up to 500 watts. So I could easily put another 200 watts of solar up here and have 400 watts of solar on my roof to constantly feed and charge those batteries here. Now, speaking of the batteries, we have 3 Group 31 AGM batteries, which will give you 315 amp hours. Basically, people in the real world want to know how much power does that give you. We don't have a generator on this coach. As I mentioned, this is a little bit different style of motorhome. A lot of our customers didn't want the generator. So with 3 Group 31 AGM batteries, we have an induction cooktop. So here's a real world application for you. That induction cooktop is going to draw more energy than anything else on this coach. So what we did was we turned it on, we boiled a big old pot of water, we got it to boiling, we kept it hot for about 7 hours off of 1 battery. So you figure you have 3 of those, you have quite a bit of energy. Now, people who are using a Class B motorhome or an outdoor rig like this typically are going to be very conservative with their energy usage and with their water consumption. 315 amp hours is usually more than enough. But you know, people like to test it, and so we've had people take it out for the weekend, really kind of turn on all the lights, use the hot water, and see how much power it used, and they found that they still got through the weekend pretty well. You can see here is your gray tank dump. Rather than having a black tank, this is something that's very common in Europe. This is a cassette toilet. So you have a 5-gallon cassette storage for your waste. So you can still be fine when you're off the beaten path, and you can use, again, some of our customers aren't using the black tank, but they do want access to the water and the shower, and so we have a 24-gallon gray tank. On this siding here, we have 4 options basically. We have 2 exterior colors. We have the silver, and then we also have the pebble gray, which really is more of a sand color. Now with the silver, you can get the green decals or you can get no decals. And with the pebble gray, you can get a red decal or no decal. Mercedes is basically forcing us to take their options on this chassis going forward. In the past, we had our own dash and our own infotainment center that we used to use on this that we liked because it had a 9-inch screen. But Mercedes, again, is forcing us to take their standard safety options. And so going forward, you're gonna have a blind spot assist. Basically, it's a little sensor that'll detect the cars just in your little blind spot. It has a rain sensor, so once it starts raining, the windshield wipers will turn on for you. It has a high beam assist, so when it detects another car coming the other direction late at night, it'll dim your high beams for you. So just a lot of little safety features like that. Your battery boost is right here, so say you do kill your chassis battery, you simply push this and you can draw on the energy from your house batteries to jumpstart yourself. You don't need to rely on your buddy. Right here you find your chassis battery. If you enjoy getting online, if you enjoy a Facebook community, this community is excellent. Now Winnebago discourages us kind of jumping on there as Winnebago employees and commenting, but I read the comments all the time, and it's just a great resource. If you're out on the road and you have a question about how to use something, that community will come to your assistance like that. And I have a lot of people who've modified little things. One gentleman put another AGM battery here so that he had 420 amp hours available to draw from. So, all right. Now that we've gone around the outside, let's go ahead and take a look on the inside. Now, because this is a 10,000 pound coach, it's required by US law 6 airbags. So what you're gonna find is that you have 2 airbags in the seats right over here. You have 2 airbags in the pillar right here, and then 2 airbags in the dash. So a very safe coach to drive. When you have the emergency brake on, you notice that we can still swivel a chair around because you can keep it on and just push that emergency brake down right there. When I was on the road with this, I found that I often just plug my laptop in right here and just kind of got to work. So again, you have inverted outlets. You can just sit here and work away. We use something called a RAM mount here. It's a partner of ours that makes these little mounting brackets, and they can hold just about anything. So we use them for iPads and iPhones. So really handy. You can really get creative and put them wherever you need them. So if you want to watch Netflix and you're out and about in the middle of nowhere, you can put it over the kitchen, you can put it here, you can put it here. I'm going to show you how to make this bed. My first warning is it's not the most comfortable bed on the face of the earth, but it's better than a sleeping bag. So if you have a young kid, we do have 2 seat belts up here, and then this will make into a little bed. One note, the only way for it to really remain firm is if you close that door, and then it'll kind of lock the 2 cushions into place. First, we lift this up here. And this becomes the platform for half of your bed. This has wood in the back of it, so it's a sturdy plywood. It'll hold you. You take this seat and you just flip it around, and you'll find that we have just a little platform right there for this to rest on. And this just goes right here. And you can pull these up right next to it. And so again, a larger person like me, I can kind of sprawl out a little bit, but mostly this is going to be for your kids. It's just a little bit better than sleeping out in the cold. Once you close this door here, this is going to set pretty firm. Underneath this seat here, typically you like to have storage, but most of our little extras are underneath there. So you'll have your reservoir for your hydronic fluid that is under here. You'll have your 2,000 watt inverter that is under here. So there's a lot of little appliances and systems under there, so we can't necessarily access that space. So this is our induction cooktop right here. And then just a little sink, hot and cold water. Because we tried to keep as much space as possible, we wanted to lower the floor as much as possible, so we couldn't create an angle to let the water drain out, so you will have to use a macerator pump. Just right here, you can hear that going, and that basically will just push the water into the gray tank, which is on the other side of the floor here. Fresh water is right underneath there. Then you see you have your little push locks. Now this is something that we changed. When we first built this, we had wood framing on our beta version. But because we're taking this off the beaten path, and this is a vehicle that's going to take a lot of torsion, a lot of twisting, we put welded aluminum framing inside of here to hold this pretty sturdy. Typical of Winnebago, we like to keep all of our systems in one space. So I showed you the bed mechanism earlier. It's just right here. Here is your thermostat. This is your S-bar system. So I mentioned how we want to limit the fuel sources on here. So this will draw from the diesel fuel. And if the diesel fuel tank gets below 1/4 of a tank, it will stop functioning. So then you won't have your heat, but that's just to make sure that you don't run out of fuel in the middle of nowhere. So you can see here, this will provide your furnace and it'll provide your hot water. So you just turn these switches on here. You see you actually have to have the hot water on in order for the furnace to work. You'll see that once I turn that off, the light here goes off. And then also when I have the furnace on, you have to turn the fan on to have it blow some air in here. Okay? So we'll go ahead and turn the system off. This is your 500 watt controller for your solar panel. This is your inverter. 2000 watt inverter here. To turn on your water pump, you'll actually use this system, which is your tank level monitor. So you can see how full all of your battery is. You have 13.1 volts, so obviously we're at 100% on your chassis battery and your house batteries. Next, tank levels. See, we're all at E. This was the first one we built. So a couple things have been kind of added along the way. This lock was not initially here. Now again, we talked about how our customers, a lot of our customers didn't want or feel the need for a shower and a bathroom. So if you want it, you have it here. You have both hot and cold water. You have a toilet here. This is your cassette toilet. So you can see it turns and twists just so that you can make yourself comfortable. You have a little dry storage closet here. But if you want to just use it for a wet storage, if you have muddy shoes, muddy clothes, you want to rinse them off and you want to let them dry in here, then this is sealed bamboo plywood. So very moisture resistant, and so you can leave all of your wet gear in here to dry. You have a little bit more storage just on this side. You see we put the Winnebago owner's manual. That's something that Winnebago provides for every customer, is a full and complete owner's guide and owner's manual. And then just a little bit of storage right here. We have a 2.5 cubic foot refrigerator here. Now, most RVs use a 3-way fridge. The challenge with that is that it uses a chemical process to cool, and that chemical process only works if your coach is level. Now you can imagine taking this off the beaten path, you're going to have plenty of times where you're not quite level. Now in the boating world, they'll use a compressor driven fridge because no matter how the boat lists, it keeps cool. This was a common complaint we got from our customers in our RVs, was that the fridge wasn't quite cold enough. So this is a compressor driven fridge. It cools faster and longer than your typical fridge. It uses electricity only. That has been your Winnebago Revel. Again, ultimately, this is less about buying an RV and more about that off-road experience. When you buy from Winnebago, we know that you could have any partner, but what we want is for you to create lasting memories. And in order to do that, we've tried to think of everything to make you as comfortable as possible on the road, and we want to be that partner with you. Thank you.